Good evening. This is Avraham Shira from Erev Pesach, and well, as you can see, I've got a bandage, some blood on my clothes, some dirt under my fingernails. It's Erev Pesach, and we're trying to clean. We're trying to reset the great order that we thought we had around this house, and the amazing thing is that I felt a lot of joy in this last few days of getting ready for Pesach, taking everything out, emptying the cabinets, emptying the closets, taking up all the carpets, opening the furniture, endless types of work that you would never do during the year. And I was thinking about it. I'm like, this is really interesting because it feels good. And so I just said, this is something we should talk about. Because there's a chaos in life all year long, and then on Pesach we're working towards Leil HaSeder, the night of order, the night of making order, the night of coming out of Egypt is like the night of ultimate chaos, moving 3.2 million people from Egypt into the desert. Well, we call it the night of the Seder, sitting down and eating according to a whole context of teachings from the sages for thousands of years. So I decided to take some notes that I thought would be useful to share because when we look at it through the filter of Kabbalah, it really actually teaches us some amazing ideas. So the first thing we start with is this idea of chaos and order. And in the beginning of the beginning was infinite light, just the infinite being, which has no handle, no definition, no concept whatsoever to grasp it. Of course, except we know that he wanted to create the world because he did. And the infinite light contracted itself into and created an empty space. Like when your heart contracts and you feel empty inside. Well, imagine that on a grand cosmic level. God emptied a space in order to create something that could recognize him. And we call that the great Tzimtzum in the beginning of creation. It was long before the Big Bang. The Big Bang will come, you'll see shortly. But he created this empty space in which to create a conscious being that could actually think of and experience a divine infinite being and not be obliterated by the light. But it was a little early for that, because what happened was after he created the empty space inside himself, then what happens? He created a structure of the worlds, of how the infinite light will be broken down into usable pieces. You start out with a 100-foot fir tree. How are you going to turn that into a house? Well, you need to cut it into a lot of boards. And that's a lot of work, and there's a lot of pieces and parts, and I think you guys got the idea. So the infinite light started to create these smaller pieces of creation, which were the primordial structure of reality. But guess what? God did it in a way that the very vessels that he created could not hold the infinite light, and they broke. That was what's called in Kabbalah the primordial, or the first Tzimtzum, and the first Shvira. Shvira in Hebrew means the breaking of the vessels. So the breaking of the vessels occurred because the very vessels that God created to hold his light weren't strong enough. And why weren't they strong enough? Because they didn't know and weren't able to share with each other. See, the whole idea of the infinite light is to create sharing, opportunities for sharing. That's why we have male, female. We have young and old. We have weak and strong. We have smart and less smart. We have all these different categories of mental and physical and emotional power that create the potential for relationships. And that's where what is called world repair, or tikkun as it's called in Hebrew. Okay, so the world's broke because they couldn't hold the light. Next stage. Well, God rearranged the pieces, but this time he did it with 3 columns instead of 1, and that's represented in the human body as the right, left, and center columns of the body, and those became vessels that could share with each other, and therefore they wouldn't break, because if one vessel gets too full, it gives over to the next. And that one gets full, it gives over to the next. And there's this constant giving and taking of light that creates the potential for consciousness and the potential for giving and receiving. And giving and receiving is what it's all about, as we just said. Okay, so then these three columns became the primordial structures from which God continued creation. Wonderful. Everything's great. Now God says, now I have a bigger job. I'm going to create man. I'm going to create a being that I can talk to and can talk back to me. You know, I think they're working on this in a lot of AI laboratories now, right? But they're going to be having some problems coming along the way. God had his own problems creating man, because man he wanted a being that had free choice. And so what happened? He created the being that had free choice. And as everybody knows, in the early story of creation, Adam and Eve partook of the forbidden fruit, which is, of course, really the idea of the duality of consciousness. That they no longer saw themselves as one organic living entity. Rather, they saw themselves as separate. The separateness was introduced by partaking of creation in an improper way. Taking for me. The introduction of selfishness became the duality, you and me, and I take from you or you take from me, and I don't like that, you don't like that. So we got to work that out, and usually it ends up either in court or law or, sometimes in war. But the point is that once Adam fell into duality consciousness, the worlds broke again. The three columns broke into billions, trillions of endless numbers of sparks. And each of those sparks really is a drop of the original infinite light. Now, what happens? We have utter chaos. Utter chaos. Sparks everywhere. And guess what? Man and humanity and then the Jewish people in succession have the job of gathering in those sparks and doing the rebuilding ourselves. God made the world in the beginning. It broke. He fixed it. We broke it, and now we get to fix it too. Isn't that pleasant? And it's just taken 5,782 years to get to this point. So, after all this work, there's still a little bit more to do, obviously. Okay, so what happens next is that these sparks are gathered, have to have a structure when they're put back together. So the structure we call the primordial Torah, and it reflects the human body as well, each at a different level. So that sounds wonderful. We now have a map to follow in the rebuilding of the world. However, the point that we're building towards, this new structure that we're rebuilding, is the idea of the redemption of the spirit from the tyranny of the body, from the domination of the material over the spiritual. And that's happening everywhere. The Jewish people happen to have a large part of the program because we have the Torah, so we have to teach that and live that and give that. And when we do that, then a lot of other people are going to merit. And we're going to put together a collective force is actually in the process of changing the world. Now, it's taken a long time, obviously, but humanity's a pretty big experiment to work with. Okay, so now we're building towards redemption of the human spirit, and we have this night where the Jews left Passover, and they have to get ready, and they have to pack everything, and have to get out of Egypt. And that's what they do, and we celebrate that night by having our Leil HaSeder, the night of order. And, if someone came to your house and knocked on the door and said, you've got 12 hours, you've got 24 hours to leave, you would be propelled into action. And you would have to make a lot of difficult decisions, like what do I keep and what do I not take? What do I leave in Egypt and what do I take into the desert? How much can I handle? How much can my kids handle? How much can my donkeys handle? Right? All of a sudden, everything you own becomes a question mark. And this is a very deep thing. It's not just about, can I take my extra pair of shoes, or do I need my Nikes in the desert, or whatever you're thinking. It's much deeper than that, because it goes all the way to our soul. Why? Well, the answer why is addressed a little bit by Rabbi Akiva, the great sage from the 2nd century, who said in the Ethics of Our Fathers, Marbim nisachim, marbim daga. Four Hebrew words. You increase possessions and you increase worry. Worry. Well, isn't that interesting? If you have more cars, more worry. You have more clothes, more worry. More houses, more anything. It creates worry. Why? Why can't I just buy something and leave it on the shelf and use it when I want and not worry about it? Why do I have to worry? I got an office full of stuff here. Do I need to worry? Do I worry about it? Not really. Until I'm missing something. Until I need something. Until something's not where I put it. And, got to start putting together a search party for that. Now, but it's actually like this. The reason that increasing objects increases our worry is because our soul is invested a tiny bit in every single thing we own. Why? Because everything that you have in your life, whether you realize it or not, has a spark of you in it. How? Because you worked for the money to buy everything you have. And even if you receive things as a gift, you pay for it in other ways. But once it becomes part of you, your attachment to it is a spark of you. It's a spark of soul. Now we call it attachment. You can call it, I own that. I possess it. All kinds of words that we can use to address the relationship. But the relationship is one of worry. Not necessarily. But look, if I go out and buy a $100,000 car and I park it in the street, I might worry about it, right? And if I buy a $5,000 car, I might worry a lot less. It's true. But, it depends on what neighborhood you live in. You might worry about, about having a 20-year-old two-seater bike. But the point is that our souls are part of us because of the thing called desire. See, desire for something is not a static something power that comes and goes in your life. When you have desire for something, it is part of you that desires. And then you get the thing. Look at this cup of tea. This is the last cup of, what is this? That Bengal spice. Everybody knows Bengal spice, right? The best coffee, the best tea going. Now, this is the last tea bag in the house. And it just happened to be right here, right now, when I was going to sit down to give this little talk. And now I see, wow, the last tea bag. That's interesting. That means tomorrow maybe I'll buy more Bengal spice and maybe I won't. I don't know. But right now I have an attachment to drinking it. And that attachment is actually a piece of me. And then when I go to drink it, the Torah tells me, well, you better bless God first because you want him to be part of your attachment. You see? So because this tea, I didn't make the cup and I didn't make the tea and I didn't make the water. I didn't make anything here. It's not mine really. It was given to me, but I'm attached to it. So the attachment is soul power. And this is a very deep thing because if you look at your life, you'll see how much soul you have invested in your stuff. And Leil Seder comes and you're already sitting down. But what about Erev Pesach? Tonight, it's, what time is it here in Israel? It's almost midnight, right? It's almost midnight. We've been working for I don't know how many hours today and throwing stuff. I'm going to take on 2 trips to the garbage, with bags of stuff that we're throwing away. And then I'm out in the garden. I'm throwing out old pots and broken tools and, it's just endless. And it's a wonderful feeling. I feel lighter. Why? Because I got rid of stuff that I don't use anymore, that I still have some kind of soul attachment. When something is no longer useful to you, you lose that ratzon, that desire for it, and you lose the weight of the thing. I hope it's clear. Because it's the kind of thing when you do it, you see it's very clear. And everybody knows, you start to go into places that you never clean. I won't clean that corner again for another year. But by cleaning it now, I actually feel good. I feel part of me is being cleansed because of those sparks in us that are everywhere and everything we own. And if you own a home, then you got a lot of stuff. Most likely, especially if you're American. Now, Israelis laugh at Americans because they come with so much stuff. And Israelis, they got the pared down thing down really good. Okay, regardless. So again, Rabbi Akiva says you increase your stuff, you increase your worry because you're attached to it. It's not because you're a worry wart or you have anxiety complex or something else. And our relationship to things is part of our relationship to place and to governments and to tyrants like Pharaoh, right? And Pharaoh is who we're leaving. And Pharaoh isn't just a king that died a long time ago and his body is mummified in the Cairo Museum. No, no. Pharaoh is the part of us that doesn't want to let go of anything. The Pharaoh that doesn't want to let you throw away that old motorcycle helmet in case you go out and buy a Harley, right? Or I had old golf clubs. I used to play golf, right? When I was a kid, etc. And someone gave me some golf clubs here in Israel, and I used them one time in 29 years. Now, should I keep those golf clubs? No. They take up space, not too much, but they're sitting there and they get rusty and they just make life heavier, less smooth, less streamlined. But it's also as streamlined in the soul. It sets us free when we get rid of stuff we don't use. And so that's part of what Pesach cleaning really is. It's cleaning all those attachments so I can go out in the desert and receive God. I can go out and receive the 10 commandments at the Har Sinai, right? That I can follow the prophet into the desert and stop worrying about, where's my iPhone? My watch has an iPhone in it. Well, I gotta be careful. The sun might hurt it. Endless worries. When are we going to be simple enough to enjoy being? When are we going to drop those connections that enable us to actually enjoy what we do have connection to? How many, suits do I need? How many shoes do I need? And I have quite a few suits, actually. It's a long story, but God likes me in a nice suit, I suppose. But you know what? When you have a few things, and I know people that have very few things, they don't think about things. And that not thinking about things is part of the freedom of Passover. Because we're not thinking about things when you go out into a desert and it's going to end up being a 40-year trip. It's not supposed to, but it could. Because it did before with the original Jews, okay? So everything has soul connection, whether we know it or not, and the measurement is your desire for it. And so I think it's a wonderful process, this cleaning before Pesach, but it's not meant to drive you crazy. It's not meant to make you get angry or upset with your spouse or your kids or anything else. It's meant to help us get into a higher spiritual state by dropping some of our physical attachments and getting rid of stuff. And also, clean things are nice. What can you say? We have all these windows around this place. When you do the windows with a little, Windex, wow, more light comes in, less smudges, less, grandchildren have lots of fingerprints, and it just makes life shine. And when life shines on the outside, guess what? It could shine on the inside too. And that shine is a big part of what we're about. Okay, because that's where the joy happens, and that's where the appreciation and the gratitude and all the things that we're actually here to feel on Passover. So this Pesach, I think I want to bless everybody to clean with joy, to get rid of the stuff you don't need, to go easy on everybody else, and to focus on the real things that matter. Why am I doing this? Because I want to be free. I really want to be free. And it's not a political freedom, and it's not a military freedom. It is a relationship between myself and my higher being, which really wants me to be free so he can give me more of his presence. And, that's something we have to work for. It's not a freebie. So God bless you all. Tomorrow night we're going to do a class I called, what was it called? Oh, yeah. The Haggadah as a manual for time travel. And this is quite a fascinating take on time, on Passover, and on the Haggadah, and how the rabbis, with their divine inspiration, wrote the Haggadah in a way that teaches us about above time and space. So we'll be doing that tomorrow night. I hope 9 o'clock Israel time. Check it out. Hopefully we'll have some advertising going around the www, right? But we're looking forward to it because it's a class I've been wanting to teach for a long time, and it probably is going to have a couple of parts. I imagine no one's going to sit for 90 minutes, but we're going to break it up into the pieces of how the Haggadah really is a document of time travel for us all the way back and all the way forward again. So God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow night And then Passover, well, maybe we'll see you in our dreams or in our hopes and our wonderful perception that God gives us on the Leil Seder. Just something I learned today from a friend in Kabbalah, that the night of Passover is all the kavanot of the Arizal are happening at one prayer. And during the week, it takes a week's prayer. So what we accomplish in one prayer on the night of Passover is included in all the activities of all of Shabbat and the weekday prayers happening in one little Ma'ariv of Yom Tov, Erev Pesach, Friday night. Be there. God bless you all.